Thanks, Zoom. Okay, so I figure I have an agenda here. Most of it is like refresher stuff, typical beginning of campaign stuff, um, and kind of like a second run of a session zero. And we'll see how far we get in all of that. Hopefully, maybe we'll get to some play at the end. We'll see. Um, so we are playing with the Open Hearth. I am the GM figure for this game of Girl by Moonlight. My name is Danny. I use he, him pronouns. Um, if everybody else would like to introduce themselves, name, pronouns, your character and their pronouns, maybe a brief description of your character, and then something important that happened to them during season 2. I'll enter that into the chat because that seems like a lot. Fumi, would you like to start?
Sure, I can start. It's like I'm Fumi. I go by pretty much any pronouns, and it's like, will be continuing to play Adele. True name is like Alhenna. It's like the harmony of, it's like royal heir, is like slash forgotten child role. And it's like, I guess we will likely be picking back up from when it's like they lost their maternal figure and everything. It's like the abyss, whereupon it's like she is like decided to accept the it's like abyss within herself to become a dark magical girl, and then all of the everything that happened from that, and it's like now they are it's like separated, and it's like I guess we'll be seeing how Adele's been doing since then. Probably not very well, but we'll figure that out. Darth Oda.
Yes, Darth Oda. Awesome.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Are you good? Are you finished? Or is there anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so, unless there's anything else you wanted me to add.
No, that's great. I was just going to move across the screen, is all. Clarice, if you want to go next.
Yeah, so Clarice, she, her pronouns, and I'll be playing my character, Sarah, true name Polaris, also she, her, or they, them. And uh, they are, they're coming off of of last season where um, almost got stabbed by their stepmother before Vega like kind of intervened in all of that situation, and also uh, had a reconciling of sorts with their stepmother, thanks to, once again, Vega being our great redeemer and all.
Awesome. David, you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I am David S. He, him pronouns. I am playing as Violet slash Vega, depending on what form they are in. She, her pronouns for her. She is a torch maiden of House Hephaestus. In the previous season, we set up that there is a torch that is carried throughout the city that the story is set in, and it is an ever-burning kind of Olympic sort of torch. And Violet is of the house that attends the torch and makes sure that it burns constantly. Something major that happened during the last season. Violet's twin sister Rose was sort of I don't want to say abducted, corrupted maybe almost, or attempted to be corrupted by the forces of evil. And with the power of forgiveness and love, Violet got her back, and now they have, I think, a better working relationship.
Sweet. And then Will.
Hi, I'm Will, pronouns he, him, and I am playing Frida, pronouns she, her, and her true name is Bellatrix. Her house, House Alnatak, is a lower status house than Adele's, but very ambitious. And so in the previous season, she was operating as a sort of parade color guard coordinator. She also had been courted by the Abyss, particularly because her father was a prominent dealer in the workings of the Abyss. But she rebelled against that temptation and operated with the other magical girls, butting heads with Adele on numerous occasions. I think the big thing that happened for her was she was able to talk her father into laying down his plans and renouncing the abyss at the end of the last season. And that upsets the status quo of her relationship with her family and her house. And I'm very curious to see where that goes in the future.
Awesome. Okay, so you'll notice that I've updated the character keeper a little bit. There's some additional things on the safety tab. I didn't copy over the stuff previously, so if you want to take a moment and fill out the stuff on the safety tab while I go through the various things on here. We have a palette, which includes our typical lines, veils, and ask first, as well as an aim for things that we want to see show up. We want to try to bring about if it happens. We have an open door policy. Any player may leave the game for any period of time and return as they are able, no questions asked. If you do think you're going to leave, it'd be nice to get a heads up, but that's not required by any stretch of the imagination. We have an X card. Any player may request any content to be excised from play. Just reach out in any way that you feel you are able to communicate. On the playbooks tab at the upper left, we do have some little checkboxes that you can hit that kind of flash and change color. And so that's a way for us to communicate, to stop and pause, to slow and check in, or to, we really like this, let's keep it up. We also have CATS, which stands for concept, aim, tone, and subject matter. We're all familiar with this, but I'll just go ahead and read through it anyway while we fill out the safety stuff. So our concept is, this is a Forge in the Dark game about magical girls fighting back mundane and supernatural forces of oppression. Our aim is to explore the struggles, identities, and relationships of this group of magical girls as they contend with their obligations within society and the forces arrayed against them. Our tone, the specific tone, is largely set by the chosen playset. And in this case, it is still At the Brink of the Abyss, which aims for themes of heroism and redemption. We definitely got a lot of redeeming in the last season, season 2. And the subject matters, corruption, redemption, lots of over-the-top anime melodrama, oppression, ostracism, and young adult violence. Okay. There is one thing that I wanted to bring up just to see how we feel about it. Considering the various impacts on various parental figures from last time, it sounded like something that would be interesting to explore, if we're cool with it, is addiction and withdrawal, specifically from the Abyss and its darker magic energies. Just want to throw that out there if people are okay with it. If not, that's fine too. Just let me know. Okay, cool. Does anybody have any questions so far on the safety stuff? It looks like it's going pretty well thus far. There is a romance matrix at the bottom as well, if that is something that you would like to fill out. Okay. So next on my list of things for us to do is to move on to the series tab and review the world that we set up at the beginning of last season, just as a good refresher of all of the specific choices we made. There's also an opportunity to discuss them, see if anything has changed. I imagine some things probably have. I think it's probably best if we kind of go through together. So I don't have to, you don't have to sit here and listen to me while I read them all. First point though, we have from last season, we named it Lumina 1,000 Points of Light. Do we want to rename the second part? Is it no longer 1,000 Points of Light? Is it now something else? Anybody have any ideas?
See, I think part of it is like seeing as we go along what we think might be the slight change or direction of it. It might be we find out like it's Lumina something else because of like more of like the tone or theme of or whatever's to come in this particular continuation.
Okay, so we'll hold off on that until the end. Okay, sounds good. So So we are at the series tab. If you scroll down, where the series name is, we started reading from below there. Fumi, do you want to talk about the Abyss and its agenda and its harbingers?
Sure. So for the Abyss and its agenda, we chose a twisted reflection of our reality that is like wishes to see its emptiness reflected in others. It's like where we noted it is something of a twisted mirror world. It's like contrasting color with it's like mono, it's like chromatics. It's like a sort of it's like a sense essentially it was a sort of shadow realm and a recurring theme of mirrors and its harbingers are disgraced it's like royalty it's like of a court of petty nobles it's like although it's like there's considerable insinuation that they were not always an empty it's like reflection but rather disgraced by terrible decisions may or may not involve spurned lovers maybe that's something we see more of in season 3. But yeah, and then essentially in summary, issues of the mundane world turned up to 11.
Clarice, do you want to read about the mundane world?
Yep. So our mundane world is a futuristic megacity with the struggles with class. And the way we kind of picture this is a futuristic megacity, both dark and light. The class struggles by the way of houses and courts, since all of our characters are a part of a house of some sort, and each of them having to deal with the struggles of maintaining their family's status in essentially in this world. And then a backdrop or reflection of the harbingers slash abyss, lesser version of the harbinger slash abyss, which I don't know what that part means. Like, if someone can remind me of what that little lesser version means, I guess.
Essentially that it's like basically extrapolating on how our mundane world is essentially it's like also reflected in it's like with the magical world and it's like essentially like both worlds sort of parallel each other in regards to like how we it's like how its issues come up, I think was basically it.
That makes sense.
Sort of the sense that we're actively combating the abyss, but the mundane world is sort of abyss light. And that you know we're not actively fighting the mundane world, but there is a rhyme between the two of them.
Yeah.
And the abyss is an intensification of that.
Essentially, yeah.
Welcome to beta version of the abyss.
Yes, a diet magical world.
I can also do the sacred ones and all just because that was quick. So
if you won't mind pausing real quick.
Yeah.
Do we have a name for our mega city? Because I don't think we ever gave it a name.
I don't think we ever came up with a name. I think we just kind of were like,
Mega city.
It's a mega city and we're going around with a parade. I don't.
Yeah, essentially. Like, I don't think we really is like quite came up with an actual name for it, namely because I think we zoomed in a little closer to like the different locations of the mega city that we were visiting. It's like in each cycle.
So I guess the bigger question is, now that we've actually had experience with this, do we actually have does anyone have an idea of a name? Do we know where we live?
I don't have a name right now, so
I could think on it. We could do something astronomical if we want to keep going with that plan. Give it like
Yeah.
Oh,
you know,
yeah, that'd be a good idea.
the city of Neo Jupiter or something like that.
I kind of love that.
I kind of love that.
Neo Jupiter.
Oh, I love that so much.
Okay, yeah. If we're yes, awesome. Okay, yeah. If you want to continue, that's fine. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. What's sacred? Tradition and edifices. So, in the way this plays out for our world, families and individuals must follow and adhere to the traditions as they were given and conform to the social machine. The symbols, beauty, and patterns must be maintained. And this also plays out in our kind of obligation with our parade and everything and maintaining our, I guess, expected participation in it.
All right. David, if you want to read what's profane, and then you could also read the magical origin as well.
Fabulous. So the two things we selected as profane in this world are emotion and community. So emotion and self-expression are considered to be profane. You only may provide the approved emotions and expressions. Community itself is also profane, and I think it says in parentheses counterculture, so does that just mean only countercultural communities? Yeah, here we go. It says only approved communities are allowed, so nothing outside the norm, everybody must conform. And our magical origin is we are embodiments of the stars. The backstory there is that there was a calamity long ago, which drove away the forces of the abyss and the stars. And now, in the current day, the abyss has crept back into the mundane world, and the mystical forces of the stars have returned to do battle with them once more.
All right, Will, do you want to read our obligations and the hideout?
Certainly. I think people had already mentioned the parade that is traveling through the city with the torch and the torchbearer at the front. And we all of our families have sort of pushed us to be involved in that parade. We're required to attend events associated with the parade, required to host, to participate in and aid approved communities as representatives of our family and our own structured community. So that endless pageant kept us all pretty busy last season. Did you want me to do the hideout as well?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
All right. So our hideout is a place between worlds, which we were calling the Skybox. It is a non-space. If you can sort of step sideways out of the world, you end up in a liminal space that is about and apart from it. It contains only those things that were brought to it by those who could enter. So we threw down some carpets and set up some ritual spaces and engaged in some acts of wall art. It is an expression of individuality upon the void. The substance there is what we bring to it. When you go to the Skybox, the emotional resonance that you carry in is reflected in the space. And in this space although the city has light pollution issues, in this space, the stars look down on us.
Nice. Okay, I think we'll just continue moving through, but we're totally going to come back to obligations because that might be quite different this season. We'll see. Transcendence. What does it feel like to transcend? It is intense and raw emotional expression. The aspect shared by everyone is starlight that is emitted and or consumed. It is different for everybody based on their individuality, their individual expression within the group. And it expresses the truest self via intensifying the emotions that are being felt by the magical girl. The individual magical girl. All right. Next up, we have transgressions. We'll just move back around. Fumi.
Right. Let's see. Our transgressions. How do we transgress against that which is sacred, and how do you represent that which is profaned? We help communities, approved or not, under the family name rather than the house, while still wearing the house's colors in blatant disregard for what our house is like, what our respective houses approve. We deny the expectations of tradition and embrace the self rather than the collective. We represent old ideals and virtues that have been lost, and we are courageous and inspire courage.
Maurice, what are our magical girls striving for?
Well, we are striving to be icons of expression and bend the world to a riot of color. We strive to lead others toward a realization of a new dream.
David, what is the calamity our magical girls seek to prevent?
Let's see here. Calamity. We seek to keep the world colorful and to prevent the abyss from stealing what remains of self-expression from the mundane world. And if we fail, people's individuality will be lost.
And Will, what great change are the magical girls destined to bring?
The sky is dark, but the stars will emerge. With each difference we make, no matter how great or small, a star returns. We are destined to fill the sky with starlight.
Awesome. All right. So would we like to, I have written down here a general summary of some major events from season 2, which I can go through, or if we all feel like we remember it pretty well, we can totally skip that too.
I kind of like to hear some of the major events again, just to make sure there's nothing I have forgotten. I think I have everything, but I might have forgotten one or two details. Who knows?
Okay, sure. All right. These are bullet points, so sit back and relax while I read to you a bunch of bullet points. So the magical girls during season 2 struggled with pressures from their position within society and society in general, particularly the restrictions upon what they can and cannot express. Grueling hours performing in the pageant as it traveled from location to location in Neo Jupiter. Pressures from their relationships, mostly with secondary characters, but sometimes with each other. The Abyss presented itself as an insidious thing, kind of first up in harbingers that were confronted was the Masked Marquis, and the magical girls confronted him in an icy ballroom. He had captured Frida's younger brother, Ian, and was courting Violet, Violet's twin sister, Rose, furthering her potential descent into the Abyss. Next up was confronting the Baroness in an exotic preserved garden with mirror passages to various locations. There we found Albrecht, Frida's father, and Regalia, Seira's adopted mother, who were working behind the scenes to bring Oda, who's Adele's mentor, in and create a magically enchanted perfume, which presumably is still out there. That kind of never got picked up again. Too many things happened all at once. In the meantime, or shortly after this, between this moment and our final confrontation, Violet was able to confront Rose in the Baroness's court and helped her find the strength she needed to resist the Abyss and to become a magical girl in the process. And then during the final confrontation that occurred in a floating drone station high above Neo Jupiter. This was the station that held all of the drones and repaired the drones and maintained the drones. And the drones, if we recall, were artificial light sources to lead the pageant in ancient times when the tradition was originally born. Everybody kind of followed comets through the sky. But with the light pollution and the loss of the stars, this was replaced by the drones. But who knows? We're about to discuss what happened to the drone station during the final confrontation. Albrecht and Regalia were ultimately redeemed during the confrontation. Marie, Seira's childhood friend, was saved. She was being tortured, and her pain emotion was being used to fuel the Abyss's mirrors magically. And then Adele broke through a corrupted Oda's armor before Oda was sucked back into the Abyss. So those are the main bullet points I have, just kind of an overarching thing. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to add to that?
I just was thinking, did we ever find out or discuss at all, actually, in the finale, what happened to the Baroness? Now that I think about it, the Baroness helped us get over here, but we didn't actually discuss on that. I don't think I think that's.
So
yeah.
last I remember, she was redeemed, and she was kind of working as a double agent as much as she could, and helped you all get into, like, through a back mirror passage into the drone station so that you could launch your assault against Albrecht and Regalia. And that was kind of the last we saw of her.
So we have no idea what happened after all that fun chaos.
Yeah, we should probably certainly talk about that. Because I think we decided in our emails that a year has passed since that final confrontation. So for good, I have a bunch of questions. Let me just make sure that Baroness is on the question list as well. All right. So there was a lot of potential that I recall for a lot of the secondary characters to they all had, like, a number of them had had the potential to become magical girls themselves. We saw that happen with Rose. So my first question is, now that a year has passed, who's part of the team now?
That's a good question. Especially because I'm curious, especially from Vega's side, whether they would have encouraged Rose to join us in this situation, or if they may have tried to convince Rose not to go the magical girl route like us.
Well, probably it's a little of both, where I say, hey, leave this to me, don't put yourself in danger, and they still keep showing up at all the wrong times. You know, like in their magical girl form, and they try to help, and sometimes they do bail me out of a situation or bail us out of a situation, but just as often they make it worse. But either way, they don't listen when I say, please keep out of it, I care about you.
Yeah, and I was thinking because the way we ended and all, Sarah did introduce Marie to Violet and Rose and everything, and the fact that they also were shown to be had the potential for this like magical girl side of things. So my thought is, what if Marie was kind of working alongside Rose in the sense of like, you guys, in the sense of like, you tell us not to get involved, and then they're both like getting involved in causing troubles with their newfound powers that they yet to know what they're doing with. Because I could see those two being a silly duo and all of some sort.
How about Ian?
I think I think Ian is a potential magical girl. I think that this is Frida's younger brother. He is a sensitive artist. I think that he is. I could either see him as a sort of magical girl in training, or as team support as an oracle. It's possible that he is picking up visions or prophecies, um, or getting additional support through his that he's expressing in his drawings. Or it's possible that his drawings provide some kind of tech support for us.
That sounds really cool. I'm down for that. If he's like an oracle figure, does that include some level of transcendence?
I don't know if we've seen him transcend yet. I think if he transcends, we'll. I don't think he's transcended yet, but I think if it happens in the fiction, then that might be a fun beat.
What about Gabriel?
Are we, is the question kind of, to what extent is he a member of the team or involved with us exactly?
Yeah, I think that's the question. Is like, how much is he involved?
Yeah.
Like, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he knew that Violet was Vega during season 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a huge breakup at the end of season 1, I remember. So he knows the situation. Yeah, I'd say he's probably a direct assistant in some way. If we want to make him more involved in this particular season, I think that's the best way to do it, as opposed to having him kind of exist on the outskirts. Now what that looks like, I don't know. Maybe something about maybe Intel and having kind of an inside access to the bureaucracy of House Hephaestus, or any of the other houses too. Maybe he's got like kind of an inside secret double agent sort of view of it all.
Does he have magical girl potential, or does he just help out the team?
I don't see any magical girl there right now.
Cool. Okay. All right, so during the final confrontation, oops, the there was a poison promise that a bunch of the drones outfitted with mirrors escaped, but there were still quite a few remaining. And at the end of the confrontation, Albrecht and Regalia and the team worked together to dismantle what was there. So with the drones out of commission, what's happened with the pageant?
That's a good question, considering those were like important for the finale of things. Huh.
I think like that particular night probably it's like after the entire everything went on, like maybe the everybody who was in the drone it's like themselves probably didn't quite get to witness it and everything, but I think that particular night probably had an unprecedented phenomenon in which like instead of it being the drones, a bunch of stars suddenly lit through as like the light pollution that night. And it's like may have caused essentially like quite a stir amongst it's like mega city for some time to come.
Oh yeah, like sort of like how with our destiny a little bit, we may have brightened the night sky a little bit, but it was only a temporary thing and not a complete thing.
Because like in many ways it's like at least 2.5 of it's like of the Abyss's agents were it's like essentially redeemed is like that mission and everything, and so I think it was like essentially that night was marked by it's like an unprecedented phenomenon of like stars showing up, it's like actual stars showing up in the it's like night sky through all the light pollution and everything in it's like a way that had not been seen for however long it's been since since all this light pollution blotted out the sky and we resort to drones. But then I think like after that night and everything, like the concern of the lack of drones since then and everything has been a growing concern, and may or may not have also sort of like possibly reverberated through it's like it's like how it affects like the possible certain houses and everything, and what it means for their operations and the like.
So that makes me think that the pageant in its former shape no longer or hasn't existed for a year, and individual houses have maybe attempted to hold their own form of the pageant to create that outlet for expression, and that's probably not doing so hot.
I can probably see that. I think another possibility is that um it's like there have probably been various methods from it's like some of the houses, particularly the it's like higher ones and everything, to somehow compensate for that or to essentially it's like or possibly to sort of redefine what the pageant is like means from here on and everything. And I can certainly see in the background, like there is probably also some political drama going on with the houses and trying to figure out who is responsible and who to is essentially pin the blame on and everything. To which I can certainly see Adele coming back is like would likely be swept up in a lot of that.
Well, and what would that mean also for our torchbearer and everything? Like with this change in the pageant, what does that change what the torchbearer expectations are? Do we have a torchbearer anymore?
What do we have? It's like, what if we have more? It's like now, like more than one torchbearer to make up for it's like the lack of drones.
Would that mean like possibly like if like Vega or Violet was still a torchbearer, that they would actually have like some weird kind of competition of sorts, or what would that even be about? I'm actually very curious on that side of things.
Let me think on it for a second. I have some ideas, but I want to ponder them for just a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, come back to me in just a second.
If there are regular events that took the place of the pageant, it's entirely possible that the torchbearer has sort of been shooed into the opening ceremonies of those events or something, just to say, oh hey, we're still doing the thing.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, keep them involved with the ceremonies, even if it's just at the opening.
And then we did have that moment where like there was some kind of like animosity situation a little bit with the torchbearer situation, which is what caused our cyberpunk water balloon situation.
Right.
So is that animosity still there, or is this like something different too? Like I feel like is the torchbearer not necessarily connected anymore as much to that old, less liked pageant in the view of people, or is it still very much a symbol of the old and still there are people who actively do not like it?
I'm kind of open to changing it and reforming it maybe a little bit for this season. What was that you just kind of were putting out?
Yeah, like it could be something along the lines of like maybe something about this this new torchbearer situation, and how it's done is it has enough of a new kind of element to it that doesn't fit into the old, which means that it doesn't have the same stigma of the old pageant to those that were not too fond of that tradition.
Okay, yeah, so less stigmatized because we're breaking away from old traditions. Yeah, no, I like that. I want to go that way with, and I'm just trying to think of what else they would really be doing. Um, because they're sort of a security team, but I'm trying to remember if they are like the security team.
I think we had this like the security group for the Torch Maiden specifically that Gabriel was part of, and then
That's Gabriel, yeah.
yeah, and then we had just kind of whatever location we went to, the ruling house of that area provided like the general security detail.
Okay. Hmm.
And that one we might want to just give you some time to ponder on, because I feel like that one affects especially more Violent Vega, so might require some thought.
Yeah. Let me circle back around. Yeah, that and Gabriel both I need to kind of suss out a little bit.
Okay, Frida, there is an outstanding poison promise that your house is being hunted. What has that been like this past year? Have they been in hiding?
I think the impression that I had was that House Alnatak's social success was being fueled by my father's dalliances with the Abyss. And so, with first of all, that support has been withdrawn. So, our house is struggling on the social scene. We're not getting the positions that we previously enjoyed. We're getting snubbed. We are not getting the resources we need. Where we're sort of scrambling to maintain our position in society. I don't know if are we in a system where one house can sort of devour another and sort of vassalize or take it on as a ward? Or is that, because if that existed, that could be sort of a hostile takeover threat that House Alnatak was having to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, there was indications with Alhena's story that there was that potentials and all with and that kind of history of families kind of doing that. So I would say that's probably already in our lore of a possibility.
So there might be a larger house that is seeing Alnatak struggle and sees an opportunity to sort of step in and shepherd their fortunes. which may or may not be Abyss related.
I'm gonna toss an idea to you. Let me know if you think of it. What if the house that comes to devour is House Phosphorus, the mysterious house that disappeared without anybody knowing really why?
Oh wow, and there's probably a stir if they're coming back onto the social scene. Like,
yeah. Does that work for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
And I feel like we talked a little bit about the idea of dealing with sort of addiction and sort of what happens if you've touched the abyss too much. And I feel like there is something, I feel like my father is probably dealing with, at the very least, metaphysical consequences of having been so deep into the abyss, because that seemed to be his plan last season. Like, he seemed to be a pretty significant driver of the season 2 finale plan, which means that he was probably engaged rather significantly with the abyss. So I don't know if they're like I don't think they're sending assassins after us, but I think they are wearing down my father emotionally and metaphysically.
Yeah, and I can see like the whole struggles with House on attack may or may not be the Abyss's way of essentially hunting them down. Essentially, like, oh, not violently or anything, but politically.
Cool. I like that. Yeah. That is very surprising. I did not see that coming. That's exciting. Okay, cool. So with all that said, what do these changes mean for everybody's individual obligations? Like, how have those changed? Like, what is it you're doing now or have been doing the past year? How has this changed from season 2?
I volunteer Clarice to start.
Wow. I would think at first I was like, I thought you're volunteering yourself, but nah, just throw me under the bus. I see. But I think one of the key things here is originally my obligation was to kind of this dealing with the kind of situation of my awkward position with my stepmother, which that has been largely kind of resolved at this point. Like that part there it has kind of been fixed. But I think this is where the obligation kind of evolves and all is that it's still very much similar in this sense, because the whole reason Regalia was doing this probably is because of both of our family status. It kind of was in a very bad place, and Regalia was doing probably everything that they could possibly have done to try and save the family as a whole, and that's kind of one reason they kind of gave into the Abyss's temptations. And so now we're that's kind of not working out. Like Regalia is having to really lean on more of like propping up the family kind of look with like things of like, now that they've kind of taken more Sarah as a proper part of the family. There's the thing of like Sarah wanting to do it, like naturally kind of want to help their stepmother and prevent her from going back to the abyss as a whole. Is that thing of like, naturally, as much as she is not one for royal or family kind of she only knows how to be athletic. She knows how to like put herself in danger and all this stuff, but she is not a person who understands politics, etiquette, and she's now having to like kind of like take on a much more forward role and everything, and she is pushing herself in this rough way of sorts of like being that kind of forward facing part of her family and everything, just to kind of help Regalia. So there's this, so even though the relationship is better, it's still the thing of like Sarah encouraging Regalia to basically be very harsh on her because she needs to succeed and she has no idea how to succeed in this task. So there's that kind of stress and everything, the familial stress, I think.
Awesome. Does anybody else have an idea of how their obligation looks different?
I think Frida has had to step up and take on more of the responsibilities of running House Alnatak. Like she's not running the house, but she's having to catch more and more stuff that's falling through the cracks. She's been running defense for her house on various legal and social fronts, and trying to mend fences and put out fires. If the pageant is not happening, then the sort of color guard parade aspect has been probably significantly muted. And furthermore, she's probably lost her position as sort of choreography instructor. But I think she is still, like, maybe she is running or involved in a dance studio of some kind. Maybe a few houses are coming together for dancers to practice their routines. She's still involved with a sort of network of dancers and cheerleaders and color guard people from the pageant's time, and is still trying to support them in this more diffuse, we're doing events now environment that we find this year. So she's still sort of hooked into the plight of dancers, but she's no longer like the official person who's running this official chunk of the parade.
I like that. That's a fun way to maintain that network, especially considering the fragile state House Alnatak's in. That should be interesting. I like that. David or Fumi?
What if we just went ahead and pulled the trigger on something we were thinking about last season, where last season I was the Torch Maiden and Gabriel was guarding me? What if I swapped with Rose? So Rose is kind of the designated Torch Maiden now. Gabriel's guarding her, and I serve as either a double, kind of in a secret way, or maybe I'm off doing kind of like diplomatic communications across other houses, like, House Hephaestus is talking with Alnatak or other houses in that way.
Is that why the position got passed on to Rose? Because you, as Violet, being the more like having been the Torch Maiden, having been in the light, and everybody recognizing you, like you're the prime person to send out as that delegate?
Right. I think that it's kind of like a position of honor, maybe to get kind of moved to diplomat. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but just kind of yeah, so someone who's essentially in charge of communications with other houses and other groups beyond Hephaestus.
How has that been going for Violet? How has she responded to these sorts of duties?
I think that the job itself has gone very well up until maybe the first episode of this season, when maybe something can go horribly wrong. On a personal level, it separates her from Gabriel, and it brings Rose and Gabriel maybe a little bit closer together, which I'm not sure she's comfortable with that.
Cool. Okay, awesome. And then what's going on with Alhenna? More of the same?
I think more of the same, but at the same time worse, and yet a lot more all at once. It's like, I think like there's a lot of insinuation that House Castores is one of the bigger houses in the as like nobility sphere. It's like essentially, and so I think as it's like especially since Oda's is like effectively disappeared and everything, like Alhenna's is like the scrutiny that Adele's basically been facing up to this point has now sort of dialed up to 13 essentially. I think it's like up to this point, it kind of shows, and like I think there is some implication that essentially like it's like it was already it's like enough that like Adele is like being like one of the royal heirs, basically sort of like unabashedly went about like helping whatever community is like they came about, and it's like everything regardless of like whether their house approved or not. And I think there was like some implication that essentially Oda kind of helped protect them from like a lot of the consequences and everything from higher up. And now that Oda's gone and everything, like I think essentially after, it's like not long after coming back from like the drone mission and everything, like Adele has sort of, it's like found them, it's like Adele sort of quickly found themselves like essentially like from sort of benefiting from the whole forgotten child role to suddenly very not so forgotten, in the sense of like, oh, now the scrutiny is very, it's like direct and very, it's like unshielded. And I think it kind of leads Adele to sort of, it's like I think it's possible that like Adele's communication with the other magical girls might have actually been, it's like become very scarce during, it's like during the year, as essentially like the pageant has basically, it's like the state of the pageant has basically become uh uncertain, and Adele basically just effectively, I think, like got sent back to the house itself. It's like for the time. And essentially it's like there's a lot of criticisms around Adele, but at the, it's like, but their merits, it's like, I think their merit kept them from essentially being axed entirely. And I think it's gotten to the point where it's like, oh, as much as like it's like much of the house doesn't really approve of, it's like didn't really approve of like Adele's um beliefs and attitude and everything. Essentially, it's like during that year, essentially, I think Adele has pretty much been like sort of, how do I put it? Probably essentially put in a sense on the chopping board into like having to, it's like prove their worth to the house and everything. And I think it comes to a point where it's like they've gotten this far and are sort of like towards the, it's like I think they're like possibly towards like right at the gate of essentially like being, it's like of inheriting the house itself. But there comes like, but I think this season probably, it's like comes to a point where they have to sort of like go, it's like where they are tested on like in a sense their conviction of inheriting the house. And that may or may not um that may or may not possibly, it's like even involve like a political engagement in a sense. It's like possibly with, it's like it's like with, it's like possibly a, it's like new secondary NPC. It's like or something, which is like may or may not also be involved with it's like House Phosphorus, or the vacillation of, it's like or the attempted vacillation of House Ontech, or who knows what goes on with that and everything. But I think like if it's like if we're interested in exploring things from like the political engagement sort of thing and everything, there would be one thing that's certain, and that's basically Alhenna's not allowed to know what house they belong to, but there is like, but there's one thing that's certain, is that if it's like if the marriage goes through, it's like they both rise in power with Alhenna essentially inheriting the house and whatever that can mean for them, and the house of their is like spouse essentially being elevated to a major house. But if they are, it's like, but if they're both essentially is like given the boot, essentially, it's like Alhenna falls and that house falls with, it's like, and the spouse's house also falls with them. So essentially, it's a very we both succeed or we both fail sort of thing. And it's like, but that's if we are interested in going through that. Otherwise, I think there's a very, it's like, I think it's enough to essentially, I think in summary, it goes to the point of like, in kind of in contrast to, it's like Frida's thing of like, oh, finding themselves, it's like finding herself renounced of privilege and everything. It's like, I think Alhenna's thing would probably be for somebody who has not really, it's like for somebody who only knows of like the future of privilege that's kind of been set for them and everything. What is like, let's see, what does society essentially expect them to sort of compensate? It's like, or compromise on, and how much can Alhena exactly justify to themselves to just like secure that future. But otherwise, obligation is like obligatorily speaking, everything they've already been doing for the pageant, except now with even more paperwork and even more pressure, and probably it's like more people like whispering behind, it's like behind their back, as well as in front of them and to their side and everywhere.
Do you have a preference for this potential betrothed figure to Alhena? Like their pronouns or anything like that?
No, not particularly. I can it's like come up with the it's like character it's like themselves. Do you have a particular preference or idea or anything?
I've been trying to think of a way to work Belladonna back in. I thought that might be one way.
Yeah. It's like I could go with that.
Cool. Okay. Okay. All right, so I have a note here to circle back around to David. Because there's an outstanding question related to Torchmate and stuff still, or did we get that answered?
I think I'm okay on that front. Basically, I have an idea as to kind of what I'm doing, in the sense that I'm more of an ambassador to other houses. Rose is the Torch Maiden, Gabriel's guarding her. I think I'm in good shape there. I think.
All right, so with things having changed and life looking considerably different for all of our magical girls, like clearly this has also had an impact on society. Everything is so hyper regulated, especially with regards to how people are allowed to come together and how people are allowed to express themselves. And one way of alleviating that kind of building pressure, those needs to connect with others and to express yourself, was alleviated by the pageant. Now the pageant looks very different. So how has that impacted society?
I feel like possibly because of this kind of like we've made progress in one way, but this almost kind of like takes a step backwards in a way. This like we made progress against the abyss, but but I feels like maybe something in the mundane world kind of actually backtracked because of our actions and all. And so maybe right now there is that kind of a situation where things are even more tense and people are a lot more strung out due to the inability to kind of just even so much as express themselves in the slightest bit as that they did in the pageant, and that sense of like whatever little bit that pageant helped kind of alleviate is now not there, and now it's just kind of steamrolling into a much more like kind of stressed and much more confrontational kind of a setting, because people are struggling to even make do without even having that pageant to kind of let loose a little bit.
What if that's especially true, namely amongst like those of the it's like community houses, whereas like because essentially the pageant was like one of their approved ways of expression. And now that's gone. So I feel like maybe that's especially true for it's like those within it's like the status quo and everything. Whereas it's like whereas on the flip side, because of everything that happened, counterculture has probably gotten stronger actually. And I think that kind of like leaps back into like the status quo has now become it's like has sort of tightened and become even more restrictive as it's like as you know those in it's like those in higher positions are trying to figure out it's like or it's like and or trying to take advantage of is like the whole situation with the pageant being gone, and it's like those who are bound by expectation but don't really have the power to defy them now essentially like our universe is like our it's like one of our accepted forms of expression is gone now, and what do we do from here is like sort of thing. I don't know. How's that sound to everyone?
I like it.
Yeah, definitely.
Good to me.
Sweet. Sounds great. Okay, we are at the top of the hour. We all good for a 10-minute break? All right, cool. I'll stop, pause the recording, and I'll see you all in 10.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we were just talking about how Sarah's house, House Ignis, fits into the general political landscape of the four houses we're dealing with here. And so you were suggesting that because House Alnatak was on the rise, House Ignis was under House Alnatak, and now that may no
Yeah.
longer be the case?
Well, and it might also be like in like House Almatak may have been like also attached to another thing before as it was in the process of rising. So maybe there's like this like grander hierarchy of sorts too, where it's like, and then with that shift in Alnatak's thing, Ignis is kind of like at the same level in the sense of like they're both not doing too hot right now, and under one greater family situation, like how, or like they've been both kind of like, and this part it gets eaten up by this family, this portion gets eaten up by this family.
How does that sound to you, Will?
It's very interesting. Yeah. It occurs. It sounds like with the lack of the pageant, with the pageant not happening, if stress levels are rising, these sort of aggressive takeovers might be becoming more common.
We're restructuring.
Right. You know, it says the social civility is somewhat suspended, so sort of old grudges are coming back out, and ambitions.
So it's almost like the thought of like, okay, maybe is there some kind of little web or something of like how these families are all kind of set in this hierarchy, and all. I'm trying to visualize how that even appears, because I think that would also be helpful, is like seeing how our families are all kind of either connected in some shape or form, and where their status lies for each family in comparison to each other.
So Castores is high, is very high up there from what I understand. Is that true?
Yeah, that's a lot of the implication, yeah.
And House Hephaestus for sure at least has a lot of political weight because of the Torch Maiden symbology and how they're responsible for that.
Yes.
So in addition to like having a lot of weight to push around because of the symbology, do they also have a lot of weight just through sheer politics as well, or is that something different?
I think it's primarily a symbolic sort of power. I can't imagine there's a lot that they're doing to influence policy, other than perhaps maybe they just look at the you know, they're kind of a figurehead organization in a lot of ways, so maybe they are important to I'm just trying to think of how to put it.
Like
Public
possibly like,
perception is what I guess
yeah,
I mean.
and probably like tradition, like maybe in the sense of like, oh, one of those like lineages that were there from like since the very, very beginning is like possibly its founding and everything, and so sort of like maintains itself through its pedigree almost.
Sure.
But yeah, I can definitely see like, oh, it's like very respected like for its traditions, and it's like things that like even if like they probably don't meddle too much in the policy side of things, possibly.
Yeah.
So yeah, so to answer that question, Clarice, it sounds to me like we have kind of Castores at the top with a ton of political power. I'm sure there's like a council of other major houses at that level, but of the four we're dealing with, Castores is at that level. House Hephaestus operates at that level symbolically, and carries a lot of weight that way, even if they're not necessarily like technically ranked that. And then we have under that this ladder of lesser houses and their very intense sudden squabbling that includes House Ignis and House Alnatek, which sound like they are rapidly becoming consumed, or in a position to potentially be consumed by House Phosphorus, who's suddenly back from who knows where. Okay, cool. Would it be helpful if I add those notes somewhere to the character keeper? Okay.
Probably.
Yep. I'm gonna make a note.
Especially the house names, because I know I am going to mess up like we were already seeing me do.
No worries. All right, David. What happened? What has happened with the Baroness so far, in this interim year?
Oh boy. Now she's the one who is still accessible with the sushi item that we got, right? That's her.
Yep, that's her. Yeah, she
What is it?
was-
What's the item again? I'm trying to remember what that is exactly.
It was a prism, I believe.
That's what it is. Yeah, it's a prism. Okay. And prior to sort of converting to her cause, she was in this kind of pocket dimension garden, right? Was she essentially serving the abyss? To what end? I'm trying to remember what that was.
She was kind of giving commands to Albrecht, to Regalia, and they were trying to bring Oda in to see the Baroness when like, all hell broke loose.
That and like
Okay.
the title Baroness in like nobility side of things suggests that she's at least a decent ring up in somewhere in the part of the abyss. It sounds like just by the title Baroness.
She was concerned that she wasn't going to be able to maintain her status long term now that she's been reverted. She was afraid some like they were like she was going to be caught onto, but I don't know
Right.
if it's true.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking is maybe at some point she has not necessarily gone back to being evil, but has sort of distanced herself from us and now serves as sort of a consultant maybe, but certainly not a servant. I think she's far too important to ever be at the heel of a bunch of you know, humans from the city. What in the world? But yeah, I know. I think you can still consult with her through the prism. Probably at a price. She'll want you to do something for her.
What's her relationship with the abyss look like? How obvious was her role in helping us in the finale, and has she gotten any blowback from it?
Is that something we want to answer or we want to explore?
Could explore. Only thing I can think of off the top of my head is that maybe there was some kind of blowback amongst her followers. There was a split, and now there's sort of like almost like a sort of civil war happening about whether or not to serve the Baroness or whether or not the Baroness is really committed to the abyss. Yeah, something like that. You know, the enemy has their politics, same as us.
Oh,
A lot
that
of it
sounds
probably
really
like
cool.
yeah, a lot of it probably influenced and or parallels basically like what we're dealing with the mundane world.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like in order to cover herself, and what she has done, she's basically instigated a civil war.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe there's suspicion that she defected, and so there was a big schism of people who were trying to break away from her, and she's obviously not going to permit that to happen. So then she's trying to crush them under her heel or bring them back into the fold, and now there's just this kind of rebellion that's going on beneath.
David, you got steadily quieter and quieter and quieter.
Okay,
I don't know.
Good,
Oh.
it wasn't on my end.
Yeah, I'm like, David's getting smaller and smaller.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
I think you might have leaned on your volume down, David. We can't hear you.
David!
Suspicion of defecting. Okay.
Technical issues. Please hold.
Okay, sure. Okay, so we'll get back to the Baroness just to wrap anything up, but I think we got the general gist of it. those were all the major questions I had. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to bring up or discuss,
I want
explore?
to revert the advances on my playbook.
You want to revert the advances on your playbook?
Yeah, I want to. It's like I'm gonna like wipe the advances and start as if it were session 1 again.
Oh. Okay, yeah, that's a good thing to discuss. Y'all are currently very powerful. We can certainly pick up with where you left off, but that might also decrease some of the potential tension that you might feel.
I was nervous about that too. It was one of the reasons why I was nervous about running another season with the same characters in the same setting as it looked like we were topping out the progression. I don't know about running it all the way back to 0, but significantly reining in the leveling might be a decent option, like take 1 or 2 advances.
I do like the idea, yeah, because normally you start with 1, so why not take an additional 1? Is that right? Or do you start with 1 transcendent and then 1 normal?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, basically start with 1 series and 1 transcendent. That was basically what I was doing, where I was like gonna do the normal, like, oh, it's like back to the starting 2 actions, and then it's like you take a third, and then it's like 1 transcendent, 1 series. I think in a sense, like, I think at least for Adele, it just makes sense considering, I think over the year-long break, and I imagine like, oh, they're considerable absence, especially it's like, and it's like as well as like the overall absence of like magical phenomenon during the year and everything, along with all of the nobility is like it's like mess going on and everything. It's like sort of like it's like I think it kind of makes sense for it's like Adele's it's like advances to be is like scaled back and everything, considering it's not something that they sort of maintained or were able to maintain during the year. And maybe that was part of the reason why other magical girls also got added and involved.
Okay, so it sounds like 1 transcendence, 1 special ability, and then an additional choice from either, depending on what you would like, and then maybe your 2 starting abilities plus your extra 1 you get to choose, and then another 1 you get to choose. How does that sound?
Yeah, I could do that.
That will be interesting on my.
So that's 1 special, one special ability, 1 transcendent ability, and 1 extra dot in Sun, Moon, Stars off standard character creation. Or am I missing a 4th dot somewhere?
So 1 transcendence ability, 1 special ability, another ability of your choice, either transcendent or special. And then when it comes to your action dots, you have the 2 that you start with. Normally, when you create a character, you get to pick a third. And so this time we'll pick a 4th as well. And if you need me to figure out what the starting abilities for your playbook is, I can totally pull that up. But you were saying something, Clarice.
For me, just as an unlikely hero who has already kind of broken off of the unlikely hero start path, that's a little. I feel like that might be a little awkward for me on certain aspects that I might want to think.
No, I feel like you can keep Hero's Destiny, and then and then you were saying you wanted to change your transcendent abilities anyway. So,
well, the transcendent abilities, yeah, that is more like. I feel like for me, it's more of like I could see like getting rid of Heartfelt and Worth Saving definitely, and then like getting rid of one of my transcendent abilities easily. It's like it's just the Believe in Me just feels like her
then
character.
keep the Believe in Me.
But I would actually just drop it for Split Attention because of my me as a player. But it just doesn't make sense for her character to just lose Believe in Me.
Then keep it.
Cool with that. Do we want to drop if we haven't really been meeting in this past year? Do we want to roll back some of the team's power? We have a bunch of series abilities.
Oh
checked.
yeah, I was thinking that would be also a good idea. Is like because I feel like the series abilities is actually where the group is based on the group cohesion and the group work together, and so I would feel like that is definitely we would probably lose like. I feel like we could probably go back to like starting like at the beginning with only like 1 transcendent and 1 series ability, because it's like especially because like where I'm planning to go with Sarah's character would also be in a similar vein as Alhenna's situation, where Sarah has been disconjoined from the group for this good year and all, and due to circumstances.
I think. All right. I guess since we're all on the same page, it doesn't necessarily matter. My first instinct was be like, oh, let's not get rid of the ones that give you action dots, but I get we can because we know what they correspond to. So it's up to y'all however you want to divvy that up. Mic check, David?
How's it going now?
Yeah.
Yay!
Okay, we're good. I have no idea what that was, but okay.
David exists again. But yeah, I guess what is everybody else's thoughts on the series / transcendent abilities? And rolling like back to just how it was at the very beginning with like one in each.
That's fine with me. I don't know how this system plays once you get to a certain level of advancement, but I've definitely played in some PBTA systems where once you get to a certain power level, it becomes hard for the system to pose challenges to the characters
Yes.
mechanically.
Yeah, especially because like in one where I did it in the Maze of Dreams, people got like we're at a point of rolling 5 to 6 die for dealing with certain circumstances that that gets a little bit harder to hit you with consequences.
So yeah, I'm cool with rolling things back, and I kind of came in, I think, in the middle of this conversation. But if we're editing anything about our character's personal stats, just update me on that, and I can do that too.
Yeah. So I'll run through that again. So normally when you start a character, you get to pick one of your you get to pick a transcendence ability on your playbook and one special ability on your playbook. So we're thinking you would be able to pick an additional one because you do have some level of experience. And then for your action dots, you would start with the 2 you normally get, the one you get to choose, like the freebie you get to choose, and then a 4th you get to choose as well. So that way we jump back a bunch, but we still get to represent some of the experience that you've gained.
So 4 extra, what are they called? Dots?
Yeah, so here for the Guardian.
I can just copy what everyone else is doing. That's easy enough.
Okay.
What was my starting ones as an unlikely hero? I just know that I had 2 in Moon and
Confess and forgive.
Okay, confess and forgive, and then what was my other one that I started? Oh, I only had confess and forgive.
Yes, you start with the 2.
Oh, right. It was 2, and then you choose one. In this case, it's 2. Choose 2.
So the Guardian for Violet starts with Defy and Perceive.
Got it. Okay, and then I get 4 more.
You get 2 more.
2 more. Okay.
And see, I will, just because of like what I want to do, just like keeping that split attention, I'll just do only the 3, which is okay. I like to start with 0 in stars and be tormented every time.
We're gonna totally have Regalia do more cartwheels and tell you about how bad your life is gonna be.
Regalia, why? I will say right now, that moment is one of the things that keeps on always coming back to me whenever I think of the series, is that particular moment, because it just got me. I was not ready for it, and yeah. The best.
And just to be clear, it's the starting 2 dots you get plus 2 more.
Yeah. So
okay.
Yes.
Normally
so you should have 4 total.
Got it. Okay. And some folks have some transcendence.
Because we haven't taken that away yet as the series ability.
Yeah, we're still figuring out the series ability and transcend ability.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
You can mark those as well for now if you want, just in case we don't get rid of it and we don't forget.
Okay, I already unmarked mine, but that's okay.
Okay. All right. Let me know when everybody's good with their playbooks, and then we'll move into the series book.
And I have a quick question, just because I never know on how this is interpreted based on, I think it's like director's decision on this. but it's one of the things I want to kind of ask in regards to a transcendent ability I was thinking of taking on, which
Sure.
is the Time Traveler's Lost Cause. It mentions like the 3 harm for doing that thing. Is it just you take the 3 harm and no resisting it, or are you able to resist the 3 harm?
All right, yeah, let me read it. Once per transcendence, when an ally suffers severe consequences, you may choose to abandon this timeline for a better one. Consequences they would have suffered are replaced by your suffering level 3 harm. Traveler's Despair. Your relationship to the person you save is different in this timeline. They will tell you how. So you basically jump in the way, more or less, take the harm instead. Yeah, it reads to me like it hasn't been resisted yet. So to me, it sounds like you could resist it.
Okay, just want to make sure before I take it, because it's like level 3 harm just takes me immediately out of the fight. So it's like that could be its own problem if I can't resist my own beating myself up. Okay, so yeah, that.
Sorry, Clarice, you just have to wait.
It's okay, I understand.
That's what you
I'll
get
watch
with time.
I'll watch from the sidelines. You guys got this.
I mean, technically, it's like if you do get a level 3 harmer taken out, I think it's like somebody could spend a link with you and have you ignore that harm. It's like for that scene.
Yeah, for the scene, but like you'd have to.
Yeah, and then we help you afterward. Don't worry about it.
Fair enough. We will come to that when we come to that. I have to first actually have you guys get hurt.
I assume we should clear any outstanding XP, links, or harm that are left over from the previous season.
I think so. Unless there's a harm that you want to explore, feel free to get rid of it.
Part of me is just half tempted to keep my feelings of guilt.
We can totally clear XP as well.
Oh, did I? Oh, I have. Yeah.
That
Hey, I have
make
full like
sense to
EXP. Everybody, don't worry about it. Get rid of that.
Are you finished with the time traveler now?
I'm
still
looking at one more thing here because I'm
Sure.
I'm thinking I'm basically being a hybrid of unlikely hero and time traveler. I feel is what I'm ending up going here.
Cool.
I'm debating whether to let lingering sense of loss continue lingering.
I was waiting for that.
Because the only reason I wasn't going to go full into the time traveler thing is fated person. I'm like, but Sarah would have everybody be their fated person because Sarah would never just choose it between any of the 3. So that is a thing with Sarah's current character development is like everybody's my fated person.
Continues to be on par with you. It's like with your characters wanting to, it's like hold everybody's hands.
Everybody's important. I can't just say, oh yeah, that one can have a bad future. It's see when you push yourself to. I have curiosity, Danny, just because I'm usually like when I'm getting like EXP, I don't really actually upgrade my stats usually. So I was wondering like if I get enough EXP, can I use like my 80 XP to change a transcendent ability when I get full amounts, like based on like, oh, as things go on, she loses a transcendent ability and gets a different one based on character change, like growth or anything like that. If it gets to that point.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that because you're still capped out at the 3.
Yeah, I was just curious on your
It's
feeling
not,
on that one.
Yeah, it's not upward advancement. It's like horizontal advancement. So I think that's totally fine.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, I am now done with looking at the time traveler. Well, I guess I have to choose a fated person for this ability. Okay. Hey, Alhena, you okay with me having you as a fated person so I can trade places with you? I just actually,
it's like I don't know. Wouldn't it make more sense with Vega considering your promise?
Yeah, I was thinking that actually, and that was what I did with the rival thing originally. Would you be up for that, David?
Yeah, totally.
All right. So now I can trade places with you if I choose so.
What better way to protect the person you're it's like you promised to protect. It's like then to just switch places with them.
Do a little switcheroo.
Okay, so if I'm seeing everything like I think I am, it looks like Polaris has one too many special abilities, and Vega needs one more of a transcendent or special ability.
And unless
Okay.
this is intentional, I think Alhena needs another dot in Sun Moon Stars.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought I put one in there.
As does Polaris.
Yep. Cool. Okay. Series abilities. The transcendence abilities we have. So this is on the series tab. Hope is strength and unshakable. Which one would we like to keep? Or would we like to get rid of both and choose something different? Like tireless, I guess.
Question: Where? Because if we do Hope is Strength is still, then we keep those transcend dots that we currently have on our sheets,
All right.
or we don't take it and we just get rid of those transcend dots, and then choose something else.
If we had to pick one, I would say actually maybe pick Unshakable, just so we can do more while Transcended this season. I feel like we didn't do a lot of that in the first half of the last season.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that.
It's tricky because you're on a hard clock when you're transcended.
That is true.
Yeah, I've only so many dots. Yeah, and I feel like Hope is Strength. Like as much as like additional things for like abilities is nice. I feel like the Unshakable feels more thematically what we're kind of coming back to as a group.
That is a good point. It does seem to reflect the narrative.
That's fine then.
Cool. And that could
Goodbye,
be the
my
first
transcendent
upgrade.
dots. My transcendent dots. They're gone.
All right, and then series abilities. We have Pure Hearts, Never Alone, Power of the Moon, Redemption, and Pageant Trained.
It
Which
breaks
pageant?
my. Oh, sorry. Go on. It breaks my heart, but I feel like Pageant Trained probably has to go.
Oh, it absolutely has to go. I feel like that is the one thing that's just like narratively it's gone.
That was one that we took from a different series too, so we can replace that with something from a different series if that is something we eventually want to do. I feel like because everybody has spent so much time alone, Never Alone does not make sense to keep.
Oh yeah, no, I feel like we've been a little bit alone. A little to our own devices. So whoop. Let's see here. We have practice hold on to hope until the very end when face utter despair, when rolling eclipse. I feel like the power of the moon is not something we would keep yet because like it's because it's almost like as a group that we were like kind of unbreakable in a way, but since we've been kind of away from each other, that we are a little disjointed at the moment for that. What is everybody else's thoughts on Power of the Moon and keeping or not keeping?
I think I don't have a problem with that. If we wanted to drop Power of the Moon.
I'm okay with it too. Yeah.
Okay. Now let's just get rid of that one then. So we have then like if we wanted to keep between Redemption or Pure Hearts, or if we wanted to be like by Starlight, because we're coming back back into the fold of trying to with the stars situation. I don't think Shrine Keeper fits into any of our current things, so we don't have to even think about that one.
Just remembering how thoroughly we had the Eclipse game locked down last season, and having the threat of somebody failing their Eclipse roll, yeah, that actually be a chance of happening is
yeah, that's one
probably a good
reason
plan.
I'll
Right.
be honest. That's one reason I was like, hey, I want to get rid of Power of the Moon. I want to be have the thing of like, and you get Eclipse and you get Eclipse. It's,
Well, time to race to Eclipse, I guess.
hey, I'm racing you. Just like I'm going to race to Ruin in Apocalypse Keys.
Let's see. I not too. It's like I'm not particularly. It's like I don't have a strong preference towards either or when it comes to Pure Hearts or Redemption. I don't think.
And I feel like just because like our group hasn't been doing any kind of redeeming in a while, like we've kind of stopped this like main goal of what we were doing originally and kind of like been doing our own thing. So it's like maybe like the redemption thing is kind of
I'm just gonna throw this out there. Just throw this
Yeah.
out there. It's either that or you guys have been doing nothing but trying to continue to redeem those that you are still attached to this
That
entire
is true.
period.
Yeah, like I was about to
because
say.
like redeeming our families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is that possibility. Actually, redemption might be more thematically there. I'm stuck between like redemption and Pure Hearts because both of them have sensical things to each character, like our group. But I feel like redemption now does seem to have a stronger argument. What is everybody else's thought on that one?
Well, Redemption was certainly core to last season.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's core of the whole thing in a lot of ways. So yeah.
Goodbye, Pure Hearts. I love you. Oh no. I get one less die from I make a connection from that. No.
How do we go ahead, sorry.
And I feel mixed about taking dots off the hideout, though we should definitely clear power source because we took away the transcendent ability that was associated with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like especially because like it's already like one of those things where it's like a hard project to even move forward as a whole and everything. Plus I feel like the healing space wouldn't just up and disappear or be destroyed in our
But that doesn't say it can't be corrupted. I mean,
that's fair. I can't argue against that as a possibility.
Considering it featured pretty heavily in the narrative from season 2 that the garden was cleansed, the Baroness's garden was cleansed, do you want to appropriate that for your hideout?
Ooh, I like that logic.
I do like that logic actually. That makes sense to me. Because like narratively that fits.
And if I recall correctly, we checked off Purification Chamber and Power Source in the last
Yes.
downtime cycle.
We put everything into that last downtime cycle for the hideout.
I wouldn't mind unchecking Purification Chamber and just sort of assume that the practice room healing space garden is sort of the core of what's remaining in the skybox.
I could see that, and like the Purification Chamber like was like maybe something that like came out of our like our current desperation in the last bit of like dealing with the finale, and like now that things have kind of gone kind of quieter or in a way are separate ways. It's the light in the purification chamber has kind of gone dark at the moment.
Yeah, because I think the purification chamber was a corrupted prism that you will put in the center of a circle, and then you cleanse it or something like that.
Something
Yeah,
like
and if
that,
we
yeah.
haven't been maintaining that at all in the last year,
It's
that
probably
doesn't
just
sound like a stable
corrupted again.
situation.
Yeah.
Probably not stable at all. I'm just gonna make a note to myself. There's that corruption thing that Fumi was talking about.
And I feel like that it'll also have that fun thing when we actually go back to our hideout, like the how things have slightly been changed and all. It will be that thing of like when we actually return as a group to it, it's probably going to have some kind of different kind of how it kind of presents itself in a way a bit.
So
Considering
everybody give me a descriptor for how Lepus has become corrupted and monstrous in form.
Hmm.
Not the bunny, not our space bunny. Let's see here. That's a
You
good
should just
question.
Monocle wearing space bunny.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, I forgot about the
Not
monocle.
that, yeah.
Right. The
Um,
top hat it has now like the ripped off top, like like it's been like almost like a can opener thing like in cartoons.
Okay, so we did abilities, we did hideout, we did playbook updates. Cool. I'm glad everybody's cool with that. That seems pretty awesome. Everybody wants to feel the tension. Do we have an idea for what Lumina season 3 is called?
That is a good
We can still
question.
keep it the same, but I figured since we're here, might as
I
well
feel
throw
like
it open.
I feel like 1,000 Points of Light could definitely be changed and all a bit, considering to kind of reflect this group kind of being like kind of broken up for a bit and coming back. Something that kind of like signifies that kind of reuniting and that's kind of like struggle of getting things together again in a way.
That makes me think of something like A New Dawn. I'm trying to think of like Return, like Rebirth,
Yeah.
something along those lines, maybe.
Oh yeah, like rebirth, like a rebirth, like sort of like how like a star can be born in reborn in a sense, like or something. Yeah, something like that.
Something involving constellations.
Names are always the hardest part. Thank God I don't have to think about a name for my character this time.
I guess there's also a social dimension to a constellation because it's meaning imposed on the pattern by culture and story. Anyway, I feel like since I threw out 1,000 points of light last season, I should take a back seat to figuring out the title on this one.
And then I'm here like I'm ready to throw you under the bus because I'm not gonna figure it out.
So what are the themes we're playing with here? It's
almost like a rebirth of the group in a sense, or like a dawn of a new time or something like that for our characters as they kind of come back together, and for whatever reason because we had like in this year we were kind of disjointed in a way.
mm-hmm. There's that Japanese art form kintsugi where you take the broken pieces and you put the gold lacquer on them and put them back together that way. Could do that as a subtitle. But if you want to keep it kind of astronomical, what's the yeah, it's Luminia, and then there's a subtitle. Okay.
Yeah, like it's still Lumina, like the series, but we are on season 2, and of course, with season 2, we have to have a special like name or theming to it. Well, it's season 3, but
Okay. Lumina, 1,000 hearts of light.
patch the cracks with gold. Oh, yeah, I'm going to abstain from choosing because I will not be able to choose, so I will let other people vote on the actual naming. Do you have any thoughts for me? You haven't really said anything about our new series name.
The problem I have with names is that, like, right now, my brain is bouncing between, like, 4 languages trying to piece together a title.
I'm trying to find things that are like related to like the birth of a star, something that's got kind of a cosmic
Yeah.
impact of, that sort of thing.
Nebula is a great word. If we can fit nebula in there somewhere. I mean, a nebula is basically a cradle of stars, isn't it?
Think so, right?
I mean, that sounds pretty cool. Cradle of Stars. It's very poetic.
And then like, yeah, the only other thing like maybe is like the first stage of a star is a pro star, but like it sounds like I kind of like where that other thought though, because with the nebulans or in the Cradle of Stars kind of thing, because like I feel like those are more. I feel like Pro Star would have been more understanding like in the first season, almost like because like first stage of a star in its birth and all. Whereas this one, it's kind of a rebirth. So yeah, I think Cradle of Stars sounds. I kind of like Cradle of Stars.
Yeah, I'd be willing to go with that.
And maybe we kind of think on it and like we put that as the current thing, and then if we can't come back when maybe our brains have had time to actually play around with it, because I feel like this is one of those things where it's like gotta brainstorm it a bit.
Yeah, I think if Fumi, if your language roulette pops out something delightful, I would love to hear it, but there's no rush.
Oh, because there at some point I want to also kind of go over it a little bit, because the direction of what I want to do with Sarah's character is that they are more or less like unlikely hero that became time traveler in a situation kind of thing because of what happens. I was kind of thinking because like how Sarah would like get in the kind of get that kind of development is that something in each of the 3 people's futures dictates that to Sarah that I like I need to go back. I need to fix things. So I was kind of hoping to kind of get some ideas from everybody, like what maybe happened in the bad futures for each people's characters that may or may not be why Sarah would, in a sense of it, kind of as the unlikely hero, kind of get suddenly like in a dramatic situation that somehow unlocks this like the like sudden like time travel ability that she didn't even expect to have or control.
It's a good question.
Because yeah, it's very, it'll be definitely helpful because that is kind of the direction I want to kind of play with a little bit of my character a bit.
since the last big moment was the finale of season 2, is the potential like bad future an extension of that gone wrong? Like Albrecht is still with the abyss and like reigning high. Oda was never weakened by their altercation with Alhenna. Rose was corrupted, like returned to the abyss. Just throwing out ideas.
Yeah. I think the only reason I'm a little hesitant on that is we're past that in a way, so there wouldn't be anything that Sarah would be actively kind of worried or trying to prevent in any way.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
Something that
Not to throw Fumi under the bus, but Alhenna was effectively the leader of the group last season, and we're not in a particularly cohesive position. I mean, I'm looking at my character sheet and going, Alhenna's my rival, and I haven't seen her for a year. I'm going to be like chewing the ceiling. I'm going to be like clawing up the walls trying to figure out what happened to her. Maybe this disparate situation that we find ourselves in is one of the things that leads to the bad timeline, and it needs to be corrected.
Yeah, because I think like it's like one theme for it's like Adele it's like this season potentially is like I think in a way like their house is essentially trying to now isolate them from it's like the rest of the magical girls in the sense that like okay, you've been interacting too much with the committees we don't approve of, and I think that includes your friends, like those friends you've been hanging out with and everything. And so I can imagine a bad future is one where like they essentially remain split to the point of being it's like essentially it's like how do I put it? I'm forgetting English right now. Essentially like a bad future could be is like one where like it's like magical girls are essentially like successfully discontinued, it's not the word, but essentially split. It's like potentially even turned against each other. It's like in some sense or another.
Oh, like something about their houses or their political situation ultimately kind of results in them inadvertently being turned against each other in some shape or form that neither of them like see or know until it's far too late.
Yeah, I can easily it's like see something like that, especially because I feel like Adele's house has plenty of potential for causing that sort of trouble.
And then we have Bellatrix's situation with being with their family as a whole in its current circumstance and being hunted by the abyss, that it fits into this kind of melee of families and the drama of that politics.
Yeah, I mean, it's right on my character sheet as far as my eclipse goes. I think Bellatrix's fail state is to get worn down by the stressors on Frida's house to the point where she snaps and draws on power she shouldn't.
Oh yeah, we could also go off a little bit off of everybody's eclipse too as a thing I can play off of. Like maybe a part of the situation is everybody's eclipses in a way in that bad future that kind of goes horribly wrong. Yeah, something that in general I would like I would like thought of, and like if people can't think of it like right now, it's like the thing of like, hey, in the email, like if people can just toss even ideas about just even their character or how it is connected, or how all three of them are maybe connected in this bad future. Just something that Sarah would actually try to take, feel like they could actually try and take any kind of action towards, because that is kind of the general direction, is like Sarah will definitely want to be trying to avert things a little bit here and there. It's at least one avenue of where I was going with the character, alongside like a few other things I'm doing with it.
Would it be a good time to take our second break here while we think about this?
Sounds
Okay.
good to me.
Yeah, that works.
We go with another 10?
Sure.
Okay. Hey, welcome back. We picked off, or we stopped last time figuring out potential bad futures to help Clarice with time traveler shenanigans.
Yeah, and as I'm kind of like typing up my general kind of character goals, one of the like sentence to kind of put into perspective is that thing, like one of the avenues of the character I'm trying to follow is the concept of an unlikely hero who loses everything, and in the worst kind of moments, that's how they kind of accidentally stumble back in through time. That's how they kind of accidentally, in that desperation, their powers kind of do kind of allow them to rewind time, not being able to just accept whatever traumatic things happen.
If Vega is your favored person, it might make sense for something catastrophic to have happened to Vega or Violet.
Yeah, see, with the favorite thing, it's like part of it is like with Sarah, it's like as a character, everybody kind of is like so important that it's like that's the one part of like the fated person side of with the time traveler that I was like, I'll have the fated person part for like mechanics, but like character wise, everybody is their fated person. Everybody matters a great deal. Everybody is one of the reasons why Sarah was actually able to had that reconciliation with Regalia, and was able and learned so much about what it means to have like a found family and everything from all the three characters, and what they kind of gave them to learn. And so that's kind of where things are connected for this
I
character.
mean, it probably doesn't need to be so dramatic or detailed. It could be something as simple as basically like, oh, this is my found family. I don't want my family to break up. And it's like, so in that sense, a terrible feature could easily be, oh, it's like my found family not only broke up, but also turned against each other.
Yeah, and it could be just as simple as that if we want to kind of like leave it vague in that sense, and then through narrative find out like my character like maybe recalls like, oh, in this moment, like this, like whatever happened between like maybe a connection or a thing in the fight, it's like, oh, this is where things kind of fell apart between like Frida and Alhena's friendship, or here is where Violet like kind of like in the other future like takes a different path that causes things to fall apart. Like whatever, I could always just play narratively into like whatever happens, and I kind of twist it some of it in like, oh, Sarah, remembering, oh, this may actually lead this route if I don't do something.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I really liked that. It means we get to play to find out what happened.
Yeah.
It's possible that whatever allowed Polaris to come back in time did not leave her with a complete picture of what happened. So she might pick up on flash forwards or moments of
like a little like
connection.
flashback moments where it's like, oh, suddenly it comes back to them a little bit, and like, oh no, panic. I like that.
Sorry, I spoke over you, Fumi.
No, you're good. It was basically about it's like what about to it's like what I was about to say. Yeah.
It feels like we have a lot of potential dark themes that we can be messing with. This place series is, does generally focus or aim to focus on heroism and redemption, which I'm sure we'll still hit. Do we want to go darker than season 2, or do we want to stay about where we were?
I'm open, like any direction really.
I'll say I wouldn't want to go lighter than season 2.
Yeah, definitely not lighter.
I would go a notch or two darker in terms of the obligations and the pressure from society. But I would still, I mean, we're still playing in this playset. I still feel like the goal of that is to hit triumphant notes and triumphant and hopeful notes at the end of the series, at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that stands out to me is in these kinds of shows, I notice the darkness or lightness is very contingent upon how much or how little things go back to normal at the end of each episode. Like if it's a really kind of light show, everything's doing good at the start of the episode, then something bad happens, but the heroes fix it and everything's okay by the end. And then you just kind of keep doing that for the duration of the show's run. With the darker stuff, it's like something bad happens and it does get fixed, but usually at significant cost. So that even after the bad guys have been defeated, there is still some scar or some damage or some grief that has to be dealt with in the aftermath. Maybe I had to sacrifice a value that I had, and now it's left me questioning, who am I? Or maybe an NPC dramatically threw themselves in front of the sword at the last moment. But there's this kind of heaviness that comes from we win the individual battles, but every single one takes something from us. And by the end of the season, you have this attrition that's built up to where everyone's kind of running on fumes on their last legs in a way that was not the case at the beginning, if that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. So it sounds like maybe a little more than last time of the fallout and repercussions, them lingering and being more impactful. I'm getting the idea, let me know if I'm off, I'm getting the idea of like, kind of like how Harry Potter started off like very light and by the end, like it grew with the audience. So like maybe somewhere towards the end.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be edgy to do that. I mean, it can
definitely.
still be very much like a melodramatic wink at the camera kind of thing, even while there is really high stakes happening in the context of the show.
Yeah, like there's easy ways to, like, especially with our world and the abyss and everything, like I feel like it's very easy to have that thing of like, this is a stressful and rough situation alongside where we are talking about like everybody hasn't had a chance to actually release their emotions with the pageant this time around, and a whole lot of other things. Like the environment alone will create, I think, the darker tone as is, and we don't have to go on the quote unquote edgy side of things. I mean, some like edgy things may happen, like possibly, but like we don't have to like lean into like make it edgy kind of like thing.
I will say that I think actually now that we're talking about it, I think I do my best like character development when I'm playing a character. I think I tend to do best when my character doesn't succeed all the time, which I know is like kind of, now that I say it out loud, it's like, well, duh, but it kind of, I think, does help a lot whenever a character actually has tried something, fails, there's no way they can go back and rectify it, and now they just have to deal with that. I think that could be a nice way to add like a dash of heaviness to it. Is and I'll that's not all a GM responsibility. I need to put myself into situations that are unlikely to work out.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what for me, like I purposely made sure not to put anything in stars so that my obligations always had the potential of being absolutely rough in some shape or form, me losing out. I was like, I will roll with disadvantage all the time on this, because like obligation is like one of the easiest ways to get that happening outside of the missions. Yeah, that's one reason I was like, yep, nothing in stars, hit me. But yeah, no, I feel you there. That's kind of like putting your characters in those tough spots, having tough decisions and everything is where they kind of will grow and have to figure things out, and stumble as they find out, oh, the way I approached it, not the smartest idea. Would I like to go back? Yeah. Can I? No. I have to now figure things out from here.
Cool. Yeah, I definitely want to still aim for playing to find out. I just wanted to see if I should make any adjustments to like the agenda and judgment calls and stuff like that it gives me.
Yeah.
Is there anything else anybody would like to add?
I'm looking forward to playing with everyone again.
Same. Oh yeah, and at some point or another, I will need to reword my naive promise, because I feel like that one does not really. I mean, it kind of fits, but it doesn't fit. With at this point, I feel it's like hard to say.
Oh, that is a good point, actually. If anybody feels a need to like adjust, like change or reword their promises, I feel like mine's probably are still pretty relevant.
Oh yeah, like my impossible one is still there. Like, absolutely nope. I'll make sure the guardian does not get hurt. Counter to the playbook of a guardian, but shh, don't worry about that.
I think my promises are still valid, though they are not currently being fulfilled, and I think that might be a point of contention. Alhenna, I will keep you tethered to the world. If I haven't been seeing Adele at all recently, that's been probably grating on me. I am curious to see what Frida and Vega have been up to, or what Frida and Violet have been up to now that they're not both involved in the same sort of project.
Oh, and I just thought my promise actually also applies with the change and everything too. I just now thinking, because like with the system as it is, and where all Hannah's going right now, it's like it is that thing of like, I need to stop you from following in the what the system wants, and hey, and having to use your title to actually have anything. That is not the way to go about it. So no, actually, my promise actually probably has more use in this particular situation. I feel like though, when it comes to Sarah, they definitely like they may have like kind of not seen it, like done things as much with everybody over the year because like of especially the situation with their family. But Sarah is very, very actively like always like trying to call, text, and like, and if they don't hear from somebody, that like there is times where she will find a way to escape. So like for during the year, she's probably still like keeping a lot of connection overall, just not as much as it was, in that sense of like, my life is a struggle right now, but I will make sure you do not forget about me. You over there.
See, other than that, I don't. It's like I don't have any questions personally. I don't. Not that. None that comes to mind right now.
Cool. The only thing I have left that we could do is kind of like we did last season, run through our anime intro, and then do Stars and Wishes. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we start off with like a dark screen, and there's no sound at first. It's just like flashing montage, very quick snippets of the finale from season 2 of the magical girls transcending, traveling through the mirrors, fighting off against various secondary characters, snippets of action sequences, and somewhere in this montage, the music from the music box from last time starts to gently pick up, which is an interesting contrast, this gentle music to this scene of violence. And then the camera like pans out of the drone station and away from the fighting, and it goes up and up and up higher into the atmosphere until we start to see clouds that it's passing through, and eventually the clouds become thick enough, and then it like bursts free and it's coming out of water. And when it does so, like last time, the music box music is replaced by like crazy hard rock and like anime screaming music and cool stuff like that. And so now the camera's panning out of water, and it's like, like how they'll do in some animes, like it's just this like empty, shallow water that just goes on into infinity, but it's brightly lit. And so I think we see there in like a statue frozen form, Regalia kind of crumpled down, hunched over, head in her hand, and standing kind of beside her with a hand on her shoulder trying to comfort her is Sarah, and they're just frozen in this. And so the camera pans up and over them and then goes down into the water, and it jumps to whatever we see of Sarah.
Yeah, and I think we see kind of just as that kind of like goes into the water, like just suddenly like kind of like the like these little like hogs kind of like of a clock kind of like going around through the like kind of current, before kind of like once again kind of washing up out of this with Sarah just kind of sitting back on the swing set that they had last talked with Alhena, and just before the big finale, and them just kind of looking at what used to be the 3 cards that each represented her kind of relation with Frida, Violet, and Alhena, as they each of them kind of start to just kind of turn to ash and kind of fall away into the wind, and just the like unable to see her eyes as it's kind of darkly shaded as they kind of look at these 2 new cards in their other hand, each having kind of some kind of symbolic thing of something timely, that as their tears kind of just drop onto them, and it fades to black from there. Or goes to the next transition or whatever.
Yeah. So the camera pans over and down, goes into the ground, and then splashes back up out of the water into this, the same sort of space where we saw Marie and Regalia. But now the statues are replaced by Rose and Gabriel standing back to back in like fighting poses, pointing outwards. And there's, I think, like shimmer of light emanating from them. And the camera passes over them and then dives into the water, and we see of Violet.
I'm thinking you have a shot of the parade that you normally would see with the torch progressing throughout, and is passing in front of a big skyscraper. The camera suddenly pans up to the top of the skyscraper where and by the way, there's a snowstorm while this is going on. Vega is in transcended form, spear drawn, fighting the Baroness on top of a skyscraper in a snowstorm. And there's kind of the requisite jumps and leaps over each other. When I think finally in one mad dash, Vega tackles the Baroness, and they both fall from the skyscraper onto the camera, and then that's when it, they hit the camera, and that's when it goes black to the next thing.
Nice. Yeah. So it goes black and then comes out of the water again. And we see two kind of frozen statues of Ian and Albrecht. Albrecht is kind of standing in the back, kind of in a defensive pose. And Ian standing in front of him with his like hand, like stay back, I've got this. And his other hand's like up in a fist, like he's gonna take this on. And the camera passes over them and then dives into the water, and we see what we see at Frida.
All right. We see a dance routine on an outdoor stage with a dozen dancers and lights, and then there's a soft fade where the dancers stay in their positions, in their poses, but the rest of the scene shifts into a dance studio with one of those mirrored backs with a full mirror against the back wall. And then in that image, we sort of see we see Frida come into frame in a very close to the camera, looking at the dancers, and then they fade away, and the studio is abandoned, and Frida is standing looking at her own reflection, and we basically pull to a closer view of her standing closer to the full wall mirror and staring at her reflection in the mirror, and her reflection smiles cruelly. And you can see the door to the studio reflected in the mirror, and like vines or creeping shadow or vines start crawling into the room behind her. And then we cut to a picture of the game we still haven't named, but it's not chess, but it's similar. And we see what we will eventually recognize as maybe one of Adele's hands with a costume that Adele has worn previously, moving a piece, and then a hand that belongs to Frida placing a spire farther out on the board. And then I think we pan close up to that spire, and there's a sort of and to a banner on it. It's House Alnatak's banner. And then we pan up into the darkness, and there's just this static, like half tentacles, half scribbles, half static that is engulfing the sky and encircling the banner. And then the camera sort of pans into that, and it's lost in the scribbles.
Nice. Yeah. I said it comes out of the water again. And we see the statue of Aaron and Oda, and Aaron's standing there looking frightened and small, and Oda is like hovering above him, arms outstretched like claws, this massive cloak of cloth and wings sprayed out behind her. So the camera passes over them and down into the water, and we see what we see of Adele.
I think essentially it's like the camera lands on it's like Adele as it's like seem to like sit at it's like a desk with like it's like a bunch of it's like papers around and everything, and like in a lone corner probably stands like it's like a picture where the glare obscures most of it, but you can vaguely make out that it's basically like, oh, all four of the magical girls essentially in a group picture and everything. It's like, but at the center of the it's like desk, Adele seems it's like to be focused on is like a prism. It's like hand over it's like their face and it's like thought before they suddenly it's like sort of like it's like stand up. It's like almost like tossing the chair aside, and then it's like they it's like walk away, and the it's like background sort of transitions into it's like until you see Adele is like walking amongst a bunch of it's like faceless people who it's like seem to be whispering it's like and it's like jeering it's like at them. It's like until it's like they gradually fade away, and then it's like I think you see it's like essentially like is like a shadowy hand is like seem to like is like stretch out. It's like from it's like beyond the screen. It's like as though trying to reach for it's like Adele from behind before it's like Adele is like seems to it's like spin around in alarm. It's like transcends it's like for a moment. It's like and in the middle of it's like drawing out their weapon, suddenly it's like they it's like seem to it's like when suddenly it's like they seem to it's like fall and get swallowed up. It's like in it's like into the water. It's like and then the camera pulls down until it's like show them in a new backdrop amidst it's like what looks to be it's like almost akin to a it's like contemporary it's like throne room. It's like it's like it's like before a grand seat and it's like the sword of Damocles basically it's like swinging precariously it's like over it as it's like Adele it's like seems to it's like stare it's like forlornly it's like at the thought and then it's like probably it's like and then it's like I think the scene sort of like shadows over into it's like dark and then back to it's like the main theme.
So we splash back out into the water, but there's no statues now. There's just that music box from before, with little stars arrayed above it, and the camera pans over it. And when it splashes back into the water, the hard rock music breaks and becomes just the music box music again. And the camera pans through darkness for a while, before shapes start to come into view of like castle parapets and walkways and bridges. And then the camera pans up and it looks like there's something dim in the distance, but we keep getting closer and closer to it until we realize it's this massive, massive feminine statue, like carved out of marble. And it goes up and up and up to the face. And we see emanating from the statue's head, as if it's hair, this darkness, abyss, basically. And we close in on the eye, and then the eye of the statue opens, and then the music stops. Cool. Awesome. That was fun. Okay. A few things. There was something, chess name. Yes, we want to give the thing a chess name, the chess game a name for sure. There's something else that came to mind, but I didn't write it down. I can't remember what it is. I set us up for 8 sessions. Not sure about how much tension and how much we would get out of it, but we've certainly addressed that. So maybe halfway through, I'll check in with everybody to see where we're at and how we feel, because we can always extend it past the 8 sessions. I know we felt like things were a little tight last time. So there's definitely room to keep on expanding outward for a bit. All right. I can't remember what the other thing was. Hopefully it'll come to me eventually. So stars and wishes. Stars to everybody. I really love what everybody's done with their characters so far and how we brought the world back to life. And it really felt like things have changed, which is great. I love everybody's answers to the questions I had and everybody's own creative contributions. I thought they were awesome. I really liked everybody's scenes in the intro. Those were awesome. Those are great. And wishes. I don't really have any wishes. I think all of the things we talked about are great, and I'm super looking forward to them.
On my end, I don't have any major wishes either, other than just kind of what I mentioned before. I think I will probably do a little bit better in portraying a character if there are some stakes that are a little bit more permanent. Like if this doesn't work out, then you've just kind of lost that relationship, or that NPC just is gone now. You know, things where there's just a little bit of stakes to it. Which I think will be easier to do now that we've kind of reset our stats. And I will be making, I think, a point to put myself into positions that are a little bit more high stakes, but I think that would be a good way to keep things exciting and also to feel like there's change and progress throughout the course of the series. So that's something I'm going to be looking for on my end. But yeah, looking forward to it.
What I'm really excited about, stars to everybody for making this feel very firmly like it's not just more Lumina. I feel like we've set ourselves up with the new season to to hit the ground running in a very different context that we did previously. And I sort of appreciate that we were able to sort of take what we had and reconfigure it into something that has breathed new life into it. I think for wishes, I feel like I didn't have as much connection with Vega. I don't think Bellatrix and Vega had as much of a connection as they could have in last season, and that's something I'm going to keep an eye on. And I'm also going to be visited by a cat, it looks like. I'm also going to try and stay more attentive as a player to where Adele and Alhenna is, so as to give Frida more appropriate ammunition in the rivalry.
Yeah, it's like likewise echoing stars. It's like the stars have been brought up and everything. It's like I always love it's like what we come up with together as a group and all, and it's like this is certainly not an exception. It's like yeah, it's like wishes is like pretty similarly. It's like I always love seeing these. It's like characters interact and everything, and it's like likewise. I'd also like to. It's like perhaps it's like reach out for it's like more scenes. It's like between it's like Alhana and it's like Vega as well. It's like along with it's like everybody else, especially seeing where the rivalry between it's like Bellatrix and Alhana is like it's like in this season, as well as basically how it's like things go with it's like Alhena and it's like Polaris, especially since they both it's like last season showed a tremendous propensity for not talking about their emotions, but then prodding each other about their emotions.
So stars to everybody's like scenes in the that we had there. Like I loved the imagery of everybody's. Each of them had also kind of this thing of like it felt like the same series, but like at the same time we're seeing 4 crazy like different like struggles and like mini little side stories that have happened off scene that are kind of leading into this this bigger thing here. Loved it, and just I was in love with the imagery as a whole that everybody was giving me. Especially appreciate Danny's kind of setup of it with the like the water transition and everything like that was I found like had a lot of fun. I'm a little concerned about the statue. I have no idea what to expect with that thing, but now it's been alluded to and I don't trust it. And as far as wishes go, just generally, I already have like certain character kind of general ideas and goals, which I just hope to hit on all of them, which I did last time, so I don't think it's going to be too much of a difficulty. And then just kind of hopefully have a lot of fun with the side of things of like what it means to be to see things from a future playing out with my friends here, and what kind of drama that might cause for me as well as a character, and along with that, yeah, just looking forward to kind of continuing on the relationships that Sarah already had in general, because like Sarah had the found family situation with Violet. Sarah basically considered Frida like the bro that I could like hang out with and like talk about my like certain kind of concerns about things. And then Alhena and Sarah, yep, having this thing of like both giving each other good advice, but not taking their own advice to heart for themselves, which I feel like is just great. So looking forward to kind of playing further into those dynamics and seeing where those kind of grow from there. And also to see if there's anything that in those little bits of that year where there might have been slight changes to that dynamic.
Cool. Okay. There's 20 minutes left, but I don't have anything else. I'm happy to hang out. Before I stop the recording, is everybody cool if I post this one? Okay.
We didn't ask the cat. Did the cat agree?
The cat is not currently concerned with such things.
Say hi to them for me.